Hello class, and welcome to MUS 3123, the Introduction to Electronic and Computer Music. So this course basically serves two functions. One is to introduce you to a broad overview of some of the themes, history, and technology that goes into the history of electronic music. And the second is to be a practicum for you to hone your skills in making electronic music, specifically through the digital audio workstation Ableton Live. Now, the idea is just to sort of dip your toe into each of these, and especially into the practical skills, so that you can then take that and feel equipped to pursue making more electronic music in whatever capacity you desire, whether that just be experimenting with producing on your own or taking further coursework here at UTSA. I'm your professor for the course, Dr. Thomas Yee. I earned my DMA, Doctor of Musical Arts, at the University of Texas at Austin as a composer, where I completed many projects that involved electronics in some capacity, whether it be just digital audio workstations like Logic or Ableton, or Max MSP, which is a program specifically for programming musical objects of various kinds. And so I'm very excited to take you through this course's material from my standpoint as a composer, and just getting to see what you create out of your own creativity, especially moving towards our final project. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the syllabus here. I'm not going to go through every point on the syllabus. I'll expect you to be reading it yourself in full. However, I do want to highlight a few points on the syllabus that may need some further explanation. So first, we're going to start by looking at the quotes at the top of the page, which I've carefully selected to really highlight the themes of the course. First, we have from R. Pierre Schaeffer, who is one of the leading and original composers within the musique concrète movement that we'll be learning about later in the semester. Schaeffer says, "The world changes materially. Science makes advances in technology and understanding, but the world of humanity doesn't change." So this is one of the composers on the leading edge of incorporating technology into electronic music and composition, and yet he's pointing out something which is the consistent part through all these changes in technology are the humans that are creating the art, that are creating art using technology. And so because of this human element that remains the same, there's still this common thread through art, whether it be from Bach or medieval chant to Beethoven to modern video game composers or film composers and music producers, and even musique concrète like Schaeffer was creating. Next, we have from famed vocalist and artist Aretha Franklin. Franklin says, "Music changes, and I'm going to change right along with it." And so in this quote, we have almost sort of saying the exact opposite of what Schaeffer said, but when you break it down, I think just offering a different perspective. What Franklin saw is that the styles of music throughout the ages changes, and the aesthetics, what things people prefer, what kind of genres come to the top, tend to change over time. And as we'll talk about through this course, as we look at some of this experimental electronic music or the tradition of musique concrète, those aesthetics have changed quite a bit through the 20th century, including how they have been impacted by the rise of digital music technologies like what we'll be working with today. And so maybe as you open your ears to the top hits on the radio or Spotify, you can hear how they've been affected by musical production standards, like we'll be learning in this course through Ableton Live and your own creative projects. Alright, continuing on in the syllabus, so first of all, I want to point out that, in case this is news to anyone, this is an online asynchronous course, like of the type that was very common during the midst of the COVID pandemic. That means there are no scheduled class meeting times, and our course is arranged week to week instead of being class session on, say, Tuesday, Thursday, or whenever you have class sessions. This means that you have the entirety of the week to complete work at your own pace, your work, readings, and watchings, but everything is due by the 11:59 p.m. on Sunday of a particular week. Next comes my contact information. Emailing me at thomas.yee@utsa.edu is the best way to contact with me, or messaging me through Blackboard, which will be routed through my email. My office is in the Arts Building, 1.01.33 on the first floor for in-person student meeting times. Even though this is an online asynchronous class and I won't be either seeing you in person or seeing you as boxes in Zoom, I still hope to meet as many of you as possible and just get to talk about who you are, what you're interested in, as well as any particular help in the course that you might require. So I've listed the student meeting times here, and please feel free to access me during those times in person at my office, or email me to set up an online time through Zoom. So my student meeting times are Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m., and Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. If none of these work, you can always email me to schedule another time by appointment. Okay, so then continuing on down the page, I just wanted to highlight some of our course values. One, we're really going to be striving for understanding in this course, not just entirely practical and, here's how you hit play or record in Ableton, but really try to understand some of the broader themes and how Ableton as a piece of software or the kinds of projects that we're doing fit within the context of music history, especially in the 20th century. Next course value we have is humanity. So I make sure to emphasize to my students at the beginning of each semester that I really consider you to be valuable human beings first and individuals, and then only students or musicians or learners second. What that means is please keep open lanes of communication with me throughout the semester, especially for anything related to COVID or COVID positive diagnoses. I pledge to adopt an orientation of compassion and working with you to find a solution and get you back on track. Next course value is creativity. So as a composer, I firmly believe in this. The truest test to how well you've internalized some of the material, like we'll be learning about in Ableton, is not whether or not you can write that information back to me on a test, but rather if you can creatively synthesize and apply it for your own ends, for your own projects. So because of that, the main work and assessment in this course is actually going to be your own creative projects where you'll have the reins to pursue the kind of project that you want within certain parameters, of course. And that what you do with those and how you manage the software to achieve those ends are the truest mark of how well you've internalized the material. And next we have critical thinking. We'll have these video discussions via a software called Flipgrid, where you'll get to discuss with your classmates on important topics like the nature of listening or the intersection of art and technology and culture through various topics which are relevant today, like sampling or like the use of MIDI and synthesis. So here you will be able to probe your own experience and share that with your classmates, as well as discuss and comment on your classmates' posts to create sort of the sense of liveness and what we could do if we were in a live classroom. Alright, moving into the detailed part of the syllabus, this is what I'm expecting you to have read, but not go over in full detail. But on the course objectives, I did just want to pause and highlight this one, the last one. That by the end of the course, you will have begun developing your own individual artistic voice and a sense of unique aesthetic preferences. Now, as I am a music composer professionally, I did want to emphasize here that I'm not here in this course to judge your own artistic preferences, your own voice, or your own skill even as a composer, because I recognize that's often not the background that you're coming to this course from. Some of you might be taking it for a general requirement or just curiosity within the music major, or a variety of different backgrounds. So what I'll be assessing and grading on is literally just how are you working within the parameters of the assignment and using the software to complete the project you're going for. I won't be judging or grading on your aesthetic preferences or your own voice. That being said, if anyone is curious about how you start to develop more of a creative voice and want to talk to me about that as a composer, I would be more than happy to do that. So please consider doing that during your during the student meeting times. If you have any questions about, I'm trying to go for this kind of an effect or this kind of a piece, but I don't quite know how to do it. And I will be sharing by the end of the semester some tips and tricks about how to conceive of your project on a compositional level. So for the required materials, I did want to talk about this. We are using Ableton Live 11 as sort of the DAW or digital audio workstation of the course. You can acquire it at the link above as a 90-day free trial. You'll need a few gigabytes free on your computer in order to install it. Now, it is 90-day, which is just shy of our full semester, so I'm looking into how the trial can be extended when that time comes up later in around November, and I'll guide you through that process at the time. Now, of course, if you do decide you wanted to purchase Ableton 11 and continue to use it in your electronic music endeavors, I highly encourage that. That is more than okay. Alternatively, there are a couple of different alternatives here. You can complete all your project work in the Music Tech Lab, which is Artsboning 3.01.31b. There's a typo there, it should just be a B at the end. The Music Tech Lab has almost 40 hours open per week, basically roughly from noon to 7 each day, as well as some date times on Saturday. Now, you can complete everything you need to in the course on those computers. Just be sure to bring a piece of external media to save your files to, because if you save to the internal drive, those drives will be wiped each day. So you'll need to save to the cloud or to an external drive. As another alternative, some of you may already have a digital audio workstation of choice installed on your computer. Perhaps, for example, you have Logic or Pro Tools or maybe FL Studio. And so for these digital audio workstations that are of a comparable or even greater power to Ableton Live, these are acceptable alternatives for the course. However, there are other programs that are digital audio workstations or digital signal processors which may not quite have the power that you need to complete this course. For example, GarageBand and Audacity would be two examples of popular free level software which isn't quite going to cut it in this course. We'll need to use functionality beyond what those can do. So please plan on acquiring, either as a trial or through the Music Tech Lab, Ableton Live 11 or a comparable piece of software to be able to complete this course. If you have any questions about whether a piece of software that you have in mind will meet the requirements or not, just go ahead and email me and we can hash that out. Okay, for grades in the coursework, it's really quite straightforward. We have 6 Flipgrid video discussions, 2.5% each, which will consist of an initial post as well as responses on your classmates' posts. So 2% of those will be, of your total semester grade, will be your own post, and then 0.5% per discussion for replying to others' posts. Then you have our 5 smaller creative projects on Ableton throughout the semester. These will really just kind of sum up a particular module and occur at the end of it, and just bring together some of the skills that you'll have been learning within Ableton. And your final project, which will bring all those threads together, will be 25% at the end of the semester. Okay, scrolling further down, I did want to mention there is an extra credit opportunity, which is a review of an electronic music concert. This is basically just a variation on the go to a performance live and then go in and make a report on it, but with the caveat that it has to involve heavily some aspect of electronic music. So either that's pieces that are entirely electronic music, like fixed media, or EDM, like digital music production, or that's combining electronic elements with a live performance in some way, like having electronic synth components with a live singer, for example. So you'll go and attend this concert and then write a brief summary and analytical reflections, incorporating at least 2 of the readings or pieces of media from the course. And you can complete this once in the semester, and just about 1 to 2 pages maximum. If you do that, you'll get 2% extra credit to your final grade. Okay, the late work and makeup work policy. Basically, I can take late assignments up to the last class day, but with a scaling penalty throughout the semester. So it's always to your benefit to complete late work and submit it as makeup. However, as soon as it's late, it will receive a 10% penalty, which is much more gracious than what some of my colleagues will do. And then each complete week it's late after that will be a rolling 10%. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. So eventually it does reach a point where all the points have been subtracted away from it. However, even then, it's going to be better than a 0 as long as you're getting some credit for it. So when you do submit a late assignment, put it in Blackboard, but also email me so I know that you have completed a late assignment. Otherwise, it doesn't really notify me. Alright, I did want to just make a quick stop here on the scholastic dishonesty section, just so I can specify what exactly in this course counts as, for example, plagiarism or scholastic dishonesty. So just to be very clear, when you're doing your video discussions or your projects, plagiarizing another source as if it were your own work or your own thoughts and words does count as plagiarism and scholastic dishonesty. So be especially careful on your Flipgrid video discussions that if you're quoting from one of the articles or quoting from another source that you found on the internet, be sure to give verbal credit or written credit in your description so that I know where you're drawing that from. But if you're just reading off of another source and not saying that you got it from anywhere, that constitutes plagiarism and scholastic dishonesty. And I've had students do that before. And then also submitting someone else's work as your own, for example, on the creative projects, whether it's another colleague in the class, someone who's taken it before, or someone external to UTSA, this would also count as plagiarism and scholastic dishonesty. So I don't mind, for example, if you collaborate or sort of get advice from others who have taken the course or others who are in the course for certain problems that you're facing. Just make sure that at the end of the day what you turn in is your own work that you've generated. That is what makes it not be plagiarism. And then finally, I just wanted to scroll down and give a quick overview of where we'll be heading in the course. And this is really the exciting part for me. So we're going to start off, before we ever touch Ableton Live and the digital audio workstation, just setting up the historical context within which the digital audio workstation arises. So our first module will be a brief history of music technology and starting to introduce us to the concept of listening intentionally. And so we'll talk about sound walking and in fact have you go on a sound walk and write a report about that experience, taking field recordings as well from the sound walk. Next, this will transition very naturally into introduction to the digital audio workstation, Ableton Live, or your DAW of choice. We'll also start to talk about sampling in that context because one of your projects will be creating a sample library of a field recording of a certain object in your zone or maybe an environment, and then finding specific samples within that recording that you can then use for the rest of your project. So we're basically building up bit by bit some of the building blocks that you'll get to use for other projects. Along the way, sampling is a very interesting topic to talk about legally and artistically, so I look forward to the Flipgrid discussions for that. Next, we'll then get into sort of more of the aesthetic points. What is music? I'm really looking forward, for example, to having you listen to a certain piece, which I'll keep under my hat for now, and then discuss that as part of your Flipgrid discussions. That will be very interesting. But it'll have us reflecting on the nature of music, noise, and silence, which electronic composition often raises these questions for us. As we talk about the musicality of noise, or things considered to be sound effects, you'll get to create your own composition, creating a sound design for sort of a spooky clip in the run-up to Halloween. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with that one. Next, we'll cover musique concrète, which, as I mentioned, is this movement of early electronic composers that started to look at the world and the world's sounds as potential building blocks for music, not just things like from a violin or from a piano. And so we'll get to read from composers and writers in that tradition. And then start to move towards making your own sound collage within Ableton Live. So you'll have the techniques and the skill at that point to be able to create your own piece of musique concrète or fixed media. Next, as we move into November, we'll be looking at MIDI and synthesis, so bringing some plugins into bear and software instruments, seeing how Ableton can handle those and really expand your toolkit using these plugins through the power of MIDI. And then the last module, Module 6, is a bit more of a grab bag, but that's because really everything at that point will be moving towards completing your own final project, which is a piece entirely of your own making and conception. So because of that, all I can really do is give helpful tips at that point, or cover topics that I think might be interesting or relevant for your project. So we're going to talk about lo-fi aesthetics and chiptune, how that's relevant within a digital music production space, as well as loop-based composition, what to do with musical parameters like timbre, texture, and form when working in sort of a aesthetic that has been impacted by this idea of looping and of minimalism. We'll get to talk about and review what you want to do with your individual projects, probably schedule a meeting time with me one-on-one. And then of course, by the end, you'll have completed your final project and submit that. And I'll try to find a way that we can share those with everyone and just sort of do a show and tell of what we've completed in the semester together. All right, so that's just a quick look at where we're going and some of the policies for the course. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. I hope I've done a good job explaining just sort of how the course itself will run. As you'll see, it's a lot of creative and project work, so do be sure to budget time for that, not just to figure out the program, but to really think over what are you going to do for this creative project or that creative project, and sort of let yourself work through that creative process. Now, this is not the most packed course as far as like busy work or assignments goes, but that's so that it can really clear off your plate and clear off your palette to really tackle these creative projects with everything that you can give, and to sort of create the space for you to start to explore your own creative process. What works for you, what doesn't work as well, what do you need to do to get the ideas flowing, and ultimately to start developing that own individual artistic voice like I talked about in the beginning. And with that, that will bring our course introduction video to a close. I very much look forward to meeting with you, interacting with you, and seeing your work, as well as teaching you this semester. Bye-bye for now.